Welcome to On Branding Podcast. And today I have a very special guest, Linda Fanaras. And Linda is the CEO of Millennium Agency. And she's been in the B2B branding and marketing space for over 25 years. Hello, Linda. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to speaking to the audience.
Thank you so much. Let's start with something simple. What is the main difference between branding in the B2C space versus B2B space?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So on the B2B space, what you're trying to do is build an identity that ties into what we call a unique selling proposition. So it's not just a logo, and you probably have heard this many times. It's more than a logo. It's really establishing what you look like, who you are, and what the personality is behind your brand. So if you look at different types of brands, whether it's like, let's say Microsoft, for example, where they tend to be more of a B2B company, they have a very corporate look and feel. You have a very specific feeling when you think about Microsoft or you think about some of these larger firms. And maybe to our audience, it might mean, okay, they're very technology focused, they're strong, they're a robust leader in the market versus someone like a B2C brand strategy. Although that B2C brand strategy still needs that unique selling proposition, the goal with a lot of branding around the B2C side is to drive consumer interest, get consumers engaged on more of an emotional level, get them buying so they're actually, they have a real strong feeling behind the brand. So branding and positioning between B2B and B2C have some similarities, but on the other hand, they can be different because you're really looking at the audience and what the audience actually wants. And that's how you start to form the brand identity for your either your client's business or for corporation or for consumer brand.
Yeah, well, so it all starts with the target audience in mind, right? And you wrote this ebook, Claim Your White Space. Can you just talk to us about the process behind identifying that white space? Can you just give us some key takeaways?
Yes. So the book, it's actually a published book and it is on Amazon. It's called Claim Your White Space. And it's why it's critical to your business success. Because a lot of times what companies do today is they may start a business and they may have the same product or service that their competitor has. So they're going into the market with this sort of exact same product, exact same similar messaging, and they're going after the same audience. So the idea behind Claim Your White Space is really identifying what it is in the market that hasn't been tapped into yet. So that could vary from building a proprietary process for your business that you can wrap around selling with your products and services. It could be rebranding your company in a very unique way. It could be launching a new product in an emerging market that has not been touched yet. So the whole idea behind actually claiming your white space, I love speaking about this because I think this is where a lot of companies lose sight, is they tend to look at their competitors and piggyback with their competitors, but rather do that. What you're trying to do is, okay, what is it happening in the market that people haven't really tapped into, and how can we grab that piece of the market and align ourselves with that and then market specifically to the uniqueness of what that could be. So again, I don't want to confuse the audience, but it can be a variety of different things. It could be a new product, it could be new messaging, it could be a new brand, it could be just coming up with some sort of bundled scenario that really targets the market. So you're identifying in the market what hasn't been touched yet, and you're building out a strategy that could be highly demanded.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So just some key takeaways for our audience. So if you have the same product or the same offering, you offer similar services or similar products in the B2B space, you don't necessarily want to blend in and then you just compete with them, right? But you compete for the same audience versus you can look at your products and services and maybe you have some unique proprietary frameworks. Maybe you can package those products and services differently. Maybe you can rebrand your business to stand out among your competitors. Maybe you can create messaging that is totally different than that of your competitors. So there are different ways to go about that. Okay, so that's great. Do you have any specialization? I've seen on your website that you work with pharma, biotech, technology companies. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we primarily work with a lot of technology firms. We work with manufacturing firms, which also often manufacturing firms have its sort of technology aspect to them because they may be a robot, they may have robots implemented in their business. And then also we do work in healthcare slash pharma as well, which is also kind of this manufacturing type of business. So those are our key competencies. I will say that we have worked with a spectrum of types of businesses over the years, but that tends to be our focus.
What are some of the common misconceptions about branding? Some businesses take branding more seriously, and perhaps some industries take branding more seriously than other industries. Have you noticed anything like that?
Yeah, well, I will say what we find is if a company decides that they've established a brand, a new logo, a look and feel, what we find over time is that company gets bored with that look and feel over time, and they tend to alter it slightly. So they may have a new employee that comes in that oversees their marketing that just might want to make a tweak here and a tweak there and makes a few changes to the brand. And then the next thing you know, your website looks different than your digital ads, and your digital ads look different than your social media, and your email marketing campaigns have a whole different look and feel. So you end up with this fragmented brand that doesn't really bring any value to you as a corporation. And that's why you see these huge brands like Amazon or Zappos or even Lyft or Uber. They have a very specific look and feel, and they follow that look and feel, and that's what builds strength behind a company. It makes that company very robust because they're very consistent in the way that they use their creative and the way they speak about themselves, and that is what elevates them as a corporation. So companies often have the best intention when it comes to branding and messaging, but what we find over time is that they tend to maybe get too many hands in the pot, and then it starts to change, and it doesn't really provide value to the company as much.
So as we all know, branding is not just the logo, right? That's just one part of your visual identity, but there is also verbal identity. There is strategy behind this, the marketing strategy. So it's not about making those small tweaks, coming from different directions, because it's gonna make your brand look inconsistent, as you said. Let me know if you would agree, but the tip number one would be to make sure that you're, rather than just making small tweaks, you think strategically and with consistency in mind. Would you agree with that?
Correct. Yeah, and definitely when you're building out a brand, all companies should have some sort of brand guideline, which means they can't go off track too much. They may go off track a little bit, but there should be guardrails around whatever they're changing to make sure that whoever is touching their brand has the same brand guidelines in mind. So those tweaks have to be minor and they have to be monitored, and in order to maintain that brand strength, it is a very important part where I think a lot of people lose sight of
That's a
that.
very good point. Brand guidelines are very important. You can call them brand guideline or a style guide, but basically it's a document that describes your brand, right? You've been running your company for a very long time, and marketing and branding in space is changing constantly. And now we have new trends and new technologies. We have AI. And what do you make of all of that? Do you see any emerging trends or technologies that will shape the future of branding and marketing?
I definitely think AI will continue. And I always feel we're on the front end of a lot of change. So you probably recall when social media really started to get going, and some people were digging their heels in going, I'm not, getting on Facebook, and I'm definitely not going to be engaging in this. And from an agency perspective, I mean, if we chose not to engage, I mean, we would completely be out of business. And the same goes with technology like AI, because AI can be extraordinarily valuable in areas of, content writing or creative or workflow or project management and many other areas of business. But it's really a matter of using AI in a way, not as a replacement, but as a foundation to sort of build something that you're trying to create. And I think that's where companies may start to go wrong, is they use it as their only tool, either whether it's content writing or other mechanisms. They use it as their only tool instead of as a tool, as a guiding tool.
Right. So basically what you said is that a few years ago, those who chose not engage on social media probably made a huge mistake, and the same could be applied to AI nowadays, right?
Correct.
Cannot ignore AI, is everywhere. There are people using AI. It's not just about AI. Like, you cannot replace people with AI, but you can use AI to make your work more productive, more efficient, and get better ideas and stuff like that. So as we are approaching the end of our episode, of course, we're going to link to your book, but for those who want to either work with you or learn more about your approach to branding in B2B space, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, so they can reach me at L Fanaras, which is Fanaras, all A's, at mill.agency. So, or you can connect with me directly on LinkedIn, and it should be listed in the comments, I'm
Yeah.
assuming, if they'd like to connect with me directly there as well. And in fact, if you just Google me, you can also go to mill.agency, which is mill.agency.
Okay, it's been great talking to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yep, absolutely. It's been great to share some insights with your
So much.
audience. Thank you.